check device. Good evening, good evening. So this is a Soul Sister recap for January, and our word was surrender. And so I want to jump right into it because I know sometimes with Facebook Live videos you can kind of prolong, and then when people rewatch it, it takes forever to get to the content. So let's jump right in. So I want to ask a question. Why do we love the word surrender but hate the act of surrender? We love to talk about this word. It was a great word for us this month, and we had great discussion. But when it really comes down to it, we struggle with surrendering. And so we really had, at least here in Georgia, we had such a good conversation. And that's what Soul Sister is about. It's about talking about topics and getting a better understanding of what these words mean. And so I wanted to share with you a verse that has stuck with me this whole month. And what happens is He's given me our root words for Soul Sister almost, I don't know, maybe 10 months ago or so. And I kind of just jot them down and I prayed about what order. And so surrender it landed in January. And what God tends to do with me is he'll make me go through it. He'll really test me in this area before we even get to it. And so the word that, the verse that stuck out to me is, the Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. And I want to break this down as it pertains to surrender. I look at the Lord is my shepherd, that is saying that I am making this choice to surrender to the Lord, and he shepherds me. So I don't question. You think about sheep, they don't question the shepherd. Actually, sheep are not very smart, but they don't question the shepherd. They don't question if they're going to eat. They don't question when the shepherd directs which way that they go. They surrender to the shepherd. And so when we say the Lord is my shepherd, that is a sign and a posture of surrender. And then it says, I have all that I need. So we trust that. And so it really puts us in this place of, okay, if God truly is my shepherd, if Jesus is my shepherd, then I will surrender my thoughts to him. I will surrender my ways to him. I will surrender my will to him. But again, we love to say that. But then when it comes down to it, do we really do it? And I wanted to kind of dig a little bit into that. So I talked about the Lord is my decision, and shepherd is him guiding and leading us. But when we want change in our life, when we really are desperate for change and we really want to see something turn around, is surrender really the first thing we think about? I don't think so. I really, really don't think so. I think we turn to a book, we turn to the gym, we turn to a friend, we turn to changing things in our life and our lifestyles, but we don't think to stop and say, let me surrender this to God. But I'm going to be honest with you. You know, surrender is not, it's not glamorous. It really is not glamorous. And it comes with sacrifice. And those were the three words that kind of came to me as I think about surrender. There's submission, there's surrender, and we're talking about that. And then there's sanctifying yourself. And so I wonder, what's the difference between submission and surrender? The difference between submission and surrender is actually huge, because with submission, you're yielding or you're giving way to something, but surrender is you're giving up. And that's what we talked about. We talked about, what are we going to let go of? What are we going to give up? Give up control. A lot of us in the room, we're talking about giving up control. And to be honest, especially just if you are in a manager position, you're in leadership, you're a mom, you have a lot of things that you control. But with surrendering, you have to give that up. Submission is like, okay, I still have control, but I'm going to go ahead and yield that. I'm going to go ahead and let you do what you do. But with surrender, it's like, I'm not in control. I'm completely letting my ideas go and letting this, I'm laying it down. And that is not easy. So me asking the question of why we don't like the act of surrender, it's not a question of judgment, but I think it's good for us to really look at why is surrendering so hard. So I just want to, and this was a thought that came to me, surrendering might not turn out the way that we want it to turn out. And that's the honest to God truth. I want to look at Abraham for a moment in this, because with Abraham, he was a man of faith. And so the sanctifying part that I talked about, I believe, and we all know, Abraham was a man of faith, and he sanctified. He lived a righteous life unto God. Now, Abraham was not perfect. We know that. He lied. He slept with. We all know the story of Abraham. But his heart had surrendered to God, and he trusted God. He had faith in God, and he lived a righteous life unto God. But the Lord asked him to do something that, in my opinion, is like, man, he asked him to sacrifice his son. That's hard. For all the parents, like, can you think, I mean, really? You want me to do what, huh? Okay. Yeah, you gone a little too far. That's my child. But Abraham was asked to do, so he had himself in a place of, okay, I've given my all to God. I have faith in God. But after he did that, God asked him to do this. But he believed God. He believed God so much that he was going to do it. But I know that had to hurt. Surrender is not easy. And it may not even, when you say, God, okay, I surrender. So the top of the year, I am giving this to you. I am giving you my year. I am giving you my relationships. I am giving you my dreams. Boo, it may not turn out the way that you think. God may ask you to do something that sounds absolutely insane. But will you still surrender? And to be honest with you, I'm like, what would I have done if I was in Abraham's position? I really don't know. To be honest, I really don't know. But he did it. And at the last minute, God came through. And I'm like, okay, well, why would God test Abraham like that? I believe that surrender is an act of worship. It truly is. It's an act of worship, and I think that God wanted to see and but God wanted to see if Abraham's heart was in the right posture for what he had ahead of him. It was not to hurt him. It was not to make him go through suffering. It was to prepare him. It was for Abraham to know and to see God move in a way that he wouldn't have been able to see if he would not have been there. And that's what the beautiful thing of surrender is. God doesn't want us to surrender so that we suffer, even though, yes, surrendering is probably, it's going to get you in some places that your flesh is not going to like. But on the other side of that obedience, it's an obedient surrender. Oh, that's so good. Yes. On the other side of that obedient surrender, you're going to see God in a way that you've never seen him. And I believe that he will do things that you've never seen him do. But listen, we're not after God for the doing. We're after God for him, for a relationship. And that's why surrender is so important, because I believe worship, it is a sign of worship, and worship is a posture of your heart. It's an intimate place with God. And so with intimacy, you get to know somebody on a deeper level. But how do you do that if you never put yourself in that position? It's just like, I remember when Jeff and I, but when we were kind of courting and we got engaged and then getting married. And it's like there were certain, and this is not just me. Maybe it is just me. But when you kind of getting to know somebody, you're like, okay, we go on this trip together and we make it out all right. I know we good. Because being in a different environment brings out a different person. So in order for God to truly, you and God to know each other on that deeper level, you have to go to a new place. And going into a new place with him, in that place of surrender, you're going to know him better. You're going to say, oh, I remember when, and it requires you to, yes, have submission, to yield, but more than that, to give up control and let God lead you to that place. So one of the things that we talked about, one of the questions, so we have questions at Soul Sister, and I hope I'm representing Soul Sister, just what we do as much as I can. But we have questions at Soul Sister that were asked. And one of the questions that was asked was, how do trust and surrender go hand in hand? And I believe that once you surrender, you have to trust that all your needs are met. And that's what Psalms 23 says, that the Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. That's the NLT version. I have everything that I need. And so in that statement, it's easy to say I have everything I need, but when the rubber meets the road, do you trust that you have everything that you need? So the trust is kind of like that glue that keeps the surrender together. Because you can say I surrender, but that active surrenderance, you can't do it if you don't trust God. And so trusting God is so important. It's the thing that allows you to see the victory in your surrenderance. Because there are going to be things that come your way, like I just said, that is going to test your surrenderance. And so as we talked about that, I realized that with a lot of us, it's like, okay, I remember surrendering this thing to God and it hasn't happened. I remember saying that, okay, Lord, I'm putting this in your hands and I have faith, but nothing came out of it. And that was really the question. Does surrender really work? So if I give this to God, what's going to happen? And it's a twofold for me, because I think, okay, we can look at it. Well, I give this to God, but we still give things to God in surrenderance with what we want in mind. Okay. The outcome. Let's be real. We're like, okay, God, I'm going to give you this relationship. I'm going to give it to you, God. I'm going to let you bring this thing together. I'm not going to try. I'm not going to call. I'm not going to push. I ain't going to do nothing. I'm going to sit and watch my Netflix every night and I'm going to think on you, Jesus. And the reality is you're still like, but Lord, please let him call. Please let him call. It's 8:00. Okay, he hasn't called. God, I'm giving it to you, God. I'm giving it to you. It's okay. All right. You keep in your mind, you know what? And I need to listen, y'all. I'm going to turn on my Facebook because I want to know, is this just me? But I think in your mind, you still are wanting an expected end. That's not surrender. It's really, really not surrender. Surrendering is saying, okay, I'm giving this to you, and I'm trusting that if it does not happen, it's because you don't want it to happen. Oh, Jesus, that's a hard place. That's a hard mindset, but it can be done if you focus on trusting God and having faith in him. And I had shared, and some may know, I shared my story about my miscarriage. This was an area that, I've heard over and over and over and over and over again about, you have faith, and if you declare, it shall happen. You stand in your authority, it will happen. And so when I found out that I was pregnant with twins, I declared, I prayed, I went and got diapers, I got my onesie, I had the two onesies, I had the kids decorate both of the onesies, and we were thinking it's going to be 2 boys, 2 girls, boy and girl. I mean, my faith was so there that I was going to have these babies. But then I started noticing things that were happening in my body that had not happened before. And I have 2 other children. And so then I'm thinking, okay, well, I got to stand in faith. I got to go even harder on what I'm declaring and what I'm believing. And I did. And I went to the doctor and I'm like, okay, all right, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be good. I did not speak anything negative until I started bleeding a lot, and it did not stop. And in that moment, I was like, okay, I remember going to the doctor and coming home that day, and I'm just like, okay, we need to worship. We need to worship. And so we worshiped. And in the middle of me crying and declaring and believing and surrendering, what I was like saying, God, this is in your hands. But still in my mind, I'm like, but I'm going to have these babies. I'm going to have these babies. And in the middle of worship, it was like, I heard it so clear. Let God's will be done, Tia. Let it be his will. Thy will be done, not your will. And in that moment, it was like my thought had turned to, if he wants me to have these babies, I will have them. If he doesn't, I'm still going to worship him and I'm still going to praise him. And I did not have my twins. And it broke my heart. And I didn't understand. And I remember the enemy trying to make me think, well, you didn't have enough faith. You didn't pray enough. You just accepted it. And I had to tell that devil, absolutely not. Because I know I believed and I know that I prayed. But the valuable lesson that I learned in that is start praying for God's will to be done. And when you pray for his will to be done, he will give you the peace for whatever your outcome is. Whatever the outcome is. And the outcome may not be what you thought that it should be. It may not be what you want. But in my worship and hearing that and learning that lesson has set me free. And there are things, of course, I had thoughts of like, I wish the babies would have been my children. They say, Mom, do you remember the twins? They bring them up all the time. But I have this piece of thy will be done. It was God's will. And I may not understand it. And truthfully, he doesn't owe me an explanation because he is God. But that's where you find your true peace in surrendering. Because surrendering doesn't mean that he's going to do it. I believe that if you ask God what his will is for that situation, he will give you what his will. He will let you know. He will give you a peace. I remember going to a group and there was a mom there, and it happened right after I had my miscarriage. I went to this group that I go to, and this mom was sharing about how her son, I think he was like 9 years old, and he got sick. All of a sudden got sick, and she was praying and she was believing, and they had people come over and lay hands on this little boy and declaring that he was going to be healed. But it didn't get better. And she even said, and I got to a place that I had to come to an understanding that this is God's battle and that his will is going to be done. And I just started preparing my heart, and I started feeling a peace that everything was going to be all right no matter what the situation would be. She ended up losing her son, and she was sitting there telling that story, and she was so strong. And I was just like, wow, I can't imagine 9 years. My son is 9. I can't imagine 9 years of being with a child and then losing a child. Just the thought of that is like, whoo, it's gut wrenching. But that's what true surrender looks like. So that's why surrender and trust go hand in hand, because you surrender, you're laying it down to God, but you're trusting that his ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. That's truly surrendering, and that's true worship. That's true intimacy with him. That's what surrender looks like. And so our next word, and I don't want to jump ahead, but next month's word is humility, but it really goes on the back end of surrender, because you have to get to a place to realize you don't have all the answers. And what you're asking God for, if he's not giving it to you, he's protecting you. He's protecting you from something that you cannot see. I always say to myself, people's rejection is God's protection. I truly believe that if some situation, if some job turns me down, or somebody don't want to be in my life no more. Listen, I have had friends and mentees that I love so dear to me, but they walk. They don't call. They don't say what's up. And I don't have no hard feelings toward them. I really have gotten to a place of, God, thank you. I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't have those babies. Maybe God was sparing my life. I have no idea. No idea. And I'm not going to try to figure it out. But I'm going to trust. So I'm charging you, soul sisters, and whoever else is listening, that as we take on this word, don't let it just be the word for January. Let it be the posture of your heart. Because I believe that even though your circumstance, and isn't that more important? That's more important than any money, any job, any boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, or wife. Your relationship with God is the most important thing. And when you put him first, then the rest will be blessed. But you got to put him first. Law of heartache. And there was some stupid mistakes that I made. And so I'm like, okay, if I want to change, or if I want to see, and there's things that I'm praying for and that I've been praying for the past 10 years, that I am waiting for them to be manifested. I believe they're going to be manifested. But what am I going to do differently this year? I'm going to stop thinking I have it. You want me to do this year. And I'm going to, because when you pick it back up, it's not going to be as good as if you just would have left it in the hands of God. So that is what I want to give you. I know that some of us, it's like, well, I've been doing this all my life. I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Even if you've been on that job for 20 years, why don't you ask God? Why don't you ask God if he wants you to stay, if he wants you to move on, if he has something greater for you? I'll come to a soul sister. We have soul sister Ohio, Texas, Georgia, California, and Kentucky. And when you come, these are life groups, but it's not women just sitting around circle crying and being all whatever. It's not. These groups are full of life. I mean, the fruits that we are seeing from these groups and the conversation. Oh my God, what happened in Georgia? I mean, my lead sisters, they do recaps with me on their groups, and it was so cool because everybody talked about how it just was so unified. But the wisdom that flows in these groups is absolutely incredible. And it's so awesome to just sit there and glean. So if you want wisdom, come. If you want good fellowship, come. If you want to be encouraged, come. If you want to be stretched, because you will be stretched, come. If you need prayer, come. If you just need community, please don't sit home alone and suffer by yourself. I guarantee you, if you show up and you say, God, okay, this ain't my personality, but I am surrendering to you, then I believe he will meet you there and you will hear a word that can just help your whole perspective. Because listen, we ain't about situation changes. We can change your situation. I mean, you can eat McDonald's every day and have a McDonald's all in your car and you got a hoopty and we put you in a Lexus, you still won't have McDonald's in your Lexus, okay? So we're not trying to change your situation. We're trying to change your perspective, and that's what happens. It's perspective so that your emotions, your thinking, your will be surrendered. Your soul will be surrendered to God. And so come to a gathering, just check it out. And, and this is my thing. Try to come 3 times. You know how they say that in church, but try to come 3 times. Give us 3 times. Just give us 3 times. And stay after that. No, come 3 times. And if you like it, then, but just give it a chance. I don't believe going somewhere one time is going to really give you a full view of what God has in store, So I guess I'm just saying, come to a soul sister. All right. Well, that is all I have, guys. I'm hoping that I touched all. Oh, listen. So this right here, this is my light bulb. I want to talk about this. This is my light bulb. It's kind of dusty. And so what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start putting my surrendered thoughts and ideas, dreams and desires in this light bulb. And I'm going to give it to God. That's what I'm going to do. And I believe that there are going to be some things in here that I won't see, but there'll be some things that blow my mind. And that is what I believe is going to happen for us if we surrender. And the things that don't happen, if you truly are surrendered, it's not going to make you fall apart. I do believe that when you surrender correctly, it will not be followed by depression and disappointment, which is one thing the enemy is trying so hard to do, guys, is to get us to be depressed and disappointed. So I wanted to share that with you. I got this from Hobby Lobby, and it's going to be my thing for this year. Obviously, there's nothing in it yet because I just got this brilliant idea. But this is what I'm going to do, and I hope that to share maybe later on this year, and look back, and maybe even when I'm having those moments where I do get discouraged or I'm getting depressed about something, that I can, take these thoughts out and remind myself, Tia, you surrendered this to God. Yeah, because I need to be reminded. That's a whole nother conversation. All right, so anyway, have a blessed evening, and I hope that we see you at Soul Sister in February. The word